Just looking at James' background, you've been at Paramount Plus for over 8 years, various places throughout the marketing organization. So you've definitely seen change. We've come through a pandemic, and so that's changed the way consumers consume content and all that good stuff. So I thought maybe just can you share your thoughts on sort of the changing digital landscape and how that's affected the way you go to market from a brand marketing perspective?
Yeah, absolutely, and good to see you, Steve, again on a different coast this week. And good to see some of my Paramount colleagues here. Good to see you guys today in a beautiful location. My goodness, this is probably the most beautiful brand Innovators place I've ever been to. So let's just kind of rewind 12 years, go back to 2012, and in the entertainment marketplace, there were, in that year, 288 original series on air, whether it was linear or streaming. Fast forward 10 years, the last non-strike year, there were 600. So think about all your different marketplaces. Imagine if you were a marketer in a space where the amount of products in the market increased twofold and hundredfold. I mean, it's a challenge. And in a space specifically that was really focused on very focused on title marketing, and so like how do you tell the story of a story before you can watch it to get them to convince them to watch the show. And so, not to justify my job, I lead brand marketing for Paramount Plus, but I think we had to think about a way to differentiate ourselves as a broader streaming service amongst the competitive set. What were the things that we thought were value propositions for our service, and how do we kind of speak to that consumer base that is flooded with choice? And I think what we did is we were a nascent streaming service called CBS All Access that was largely thought of as an add-on service to the linear network, get you more content. We added original series to that space, and then we said we should rebrand this service to be focused on the broader offering of Viacom CBS in 2021. And we rebranded with the packaging of, first of all, the iconic Paramount Mountain, again, another 100-year-old brand that we're talking about here. And we came out with the tagline, live sports, breaking news, and a mountain of entertainment. And the mountain of entertainment was to just signal the fact that we have a quantity and quality of content that you would expect from the Paramount brand, that you've seen for hundreds of years from Paramount Pictures. So that was our initial differentiator that we did in that space. There still is a massive amount of choice, but as the streaming services mature and age, we have to start thinking about what are our significant differentiators between ourselves that a consumer is going to look at and be like, okay, that's the service for this specific need, that's the service for this specific need. So as a brand, we're starting to think through those ideas.
Yeah. Good. And so how has your frequency mix changed to more efficiently reach those consumers?
Yeah, I mean, so when we think about kind of media buying and we think about our different options there, certainly there is a need for us to tout the new content coming to our service. So there are significant campaigns that go against some of our, our big original series, our big films. When we look at kind of an overall service sell or brand marketing, we think of it two ways. Number one, they're image setters. What is this service about? What is the reason why you would sign up for this service? And so when you think about full funnel kind of campaign effort, you start with, okay, what is the master statement I'm going to make about Paramount Plus? It's a mountain of entertainment watch because it has, blockbuster movies, it has hit original dramas, it has live sports like the NFL, Big Ten, and it has kids and family content you can stream with your family. And so that's kind of like our starting point. But then when you get into kind of a mid-funnel journey, you start to think about, okay, so how do you convince this consumer that it's not just this broad thing, it's a specific thing for my household. This is where you get into some of the movie enthusiast folks, or the folks that care about kids content, or the folks that care about, I'm this big sports junkie, and so I want to be able to watch Champions League, Big Ten, and the NFL all for a low price of $7.99 per month. That's a bargain. So we have specific cells that sit in that space, and then your lower funnel is just really that hard, driven kind of hey, here's the price point, it's a streaming service, pick it up, kind of a thing. So we try to build out this multi-variant creative suite that we can hand off to our media teams, whether they're performance marketers, or they're mid-funnel marketers, or they're folks that buy billboards and kind of high-impact placements across linear television or digital spaces, so we can kind of hit the consumer where they're at.
Okay, and so how do you use CSR efforts to differentiate between streaming services?
Yeah, so we've evolved this amount of entertainment campaign. Some of you may have seen these ads, but basically kind of we felt like Paramount Plus as a brand amongst some of the other competitive set. Don't want to name them here because some of the folks are here from those brands, but we felt like we didn't have to take ourselves too seriously. We felt like we were a brand that could use humor as a way into consumers, and so we built these campaigns where we took the fictional Paramount Mountain, we threw Patrick Stewart, SpongeBob, you know, Ghost from Scream, like these different characters, put them on a mountain and said, what would they do if they were together? You know what I mean? And so we built these campaigns, we built 14 of them, these films across the last 4 years, and we basically limited our kind of tag to just a mountain entertainment. And we took that idea, this fictional mountain, and we thought, how can we bring that into experiential and to CSR? Because the mountain, again, is our icon for Paramount. And we first dove into experiential, we thought, what would be like that personification of a mountain journey for the brand as the mountain itself? And so we went to a partner, the Alterra Mountain Company, this is a ski resort, you know, some of you may be skiers here, and we said, hey, what if we built like pop-up lodges across all of your kind of your different mountain resorts, and inside these lodges that are basically 60 foot by 90 foot, so massive spaces, we built alcoves where we would highlight there were different IP, people could operate ski, come into it, enjoy kind of experience on the mountain that you would expect if you were on the actual Paramount Mountain. So we did that, and it was widely successful. We actually brought them to South by Southwest, San Diego Comic-Con, we brought it to the Super Bowl this last year, and folks just enjoyed this idea that Paramount Plus is a brand, it's a fun brand, it's true to its identity as this kind of mountain-esque adventure brand, and so we kind of built that. We took it a step further and said, okay, what would be the right CSR partner for us if we were to think of ourselves again from the lens of a mountain of entertainment? And so, you know, I grew up here in California. I enjoyed the national parks my whole life. I loved going to the Redwoods. I loved going to Yosemite. And I thought, let's reach out to the National Park Foundation. Let's see what they want to partner with us. And so we reached out to them, we had conversations, and we became the first ever streaming partner of the National Park Foundation, and we've done 2 big beats with them. The first one, we said, hey, what if we just live streamed sunrise and sunset during Earth Week, the top 7 national parks, and put it on Paramount Plus and see what people kind of, you know, how they react to it. Like, they love that, because their whole point is, like, how do you gain more access to the parks? So we did that, hundreds of thousands of people, with an average view time of 12 minutes, streamed the live stream of the sunset and sunrise of these national parks. And then we said, what would be an iconic destination for us to do kind of a stunty event within the national parks? This past weekend, we screened Forrest Gump for his 30th anniversary in the National Mall, you know, which was just phenomenal. We got to see, you know, thousands of people come out, watch Forrest Gump, to see that National Mall scene while you're staring at the Washington Monument is something else. So I think, you know, we've kind of taken the idea of this core identity of ourselves to, again, differentiate ourselves against our competitors and say, hey, you know, we're mountain entertainment, we're going to live that out no matter where we are.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was. I read about the event. It sounded like it was pretty impressive. So you talked a little bit about how consumers look at streaming services as sort of a service, so Paramount Plus, Champions League, etc. How do you think about converting that consumer to a multi-service consumer?
Yeah, so as a brand team about 4 or 5 months ago, or maybe a little longer, we kind of did this audit across all of the different streaming services, and we looked at, you know, how are all of these services positioning themselves amongst, you know, the core demographic for folks that pick up, you know, these streaming services. And it was kind of a, you know, just a moment when we looked across the screen, and everyone said, we have something for everyone. I think one of the concerns about everyone positioning themselves that way in this moment in time is that you run the risk of being nothing for no one if you're everything for everyone. And so we kind of challenged our agency on record and said, hey, how do we kind of think about this differently? And then we also looked at our retention and our life cycle analytics. And what we found is that if you can get people from one service or one show or one sport to another show, their lifetime value significantly increases. And then what we found in the research is that a lot of time with these streaming services, people think of the streaming service as not the brand itself, but they think, well, Paramount Plus is my Champions League service. Paramount Plus is my Star Trek service. They don't think of it as it's this whole household journey. So we're going into kind of creative exploration for a campaign that will release soon that really demonstrates if you pair kind of 2 or 3 things together, can we, at the onset of a consumer sign up, change their behavior to not think of it as just a singular thing, but as a multi-household thing. And make it about the consumer themselves, not about us touting ourselves in the market. It's your choice. Kind of, you get to decide that you get to go on this journey within our service to have, a kind of a multi-IP exposure and multi-IP experience versus just I'm in for this one thing and then I'm out.
Yeah. So how does your content strategy evolve to meet the demands of that rapidly changing digital audience?
It's funny because we've done these campaigns, for the last 4 years. We have, as you can imagine, we've done qualitative, we've done quantitative, we've looked at performance metrics, we've surveyed folks within our own sub base. We find that there are certain IP that are like attention getters, and there are certain IP within our space that are kind of like the workhorses, if that makes sense. They're the ones that maybe don't, in a multivariate kind of space or a multi kind of creative space, wouldn't kind of necessarily make the sign up happen, but there are attention getters that that for some reason are catchy and stick with the consumer. One random example. We put Dora the Explorer in all of our campaigns because she is the most recognized character for some reason across, think about it, from SpongeBob to like Yellowstone to NFL, Dora the Explorer, highest kind of like recognized character within our campaigns. And it's just because she has such a nostalgic connection with people across their lifespan, and she lives in their households. And it's something that people talk about. And plus, it's Dora, that's awesome. So I think it's just kind of, you learn these different things about the different content pieces that stick with people and cause creative emotion that I think then turns into consideration and intent or subscription.
Yeah, that's great. So as a leader, how do you stay informed and adaptable to this rapidly changing landscape?
For me, this year, it's 2 things. I think number one, this year I just kind of focused on listening, and I think these type of events, and thank you, Brandon, this is an awesome event. Great to hear from different leaders across different spaces. I learned so much from different marketplaces, how they're kind of thinking about their different challenges, what are the different kind of advanced technologies that are changing our spaces. So I think starting there. I think the other thing I've implemented this year is that I have a full team, all hands for my team, where I just have the youngest people of our group present to us about what's changing so that I can understand, okay, because some of the stuff that comes from this newest generation, I feel like it's just speak I don't understand. And so I'm trying to understand, like, where are they coming from? What are the technologies that they're using and why? And so I think that's changed. And then I just always come from a place of, and this is our operating principle, is be a creator, not a critic. Don't criticize the new things that are coming out, focus on how you can create from it. And so I think if you have that kind of positive intent where you're focusing on, hey, let's create as much as we can, these sandboxes for people to play in, I think you learn a ton from that versus dismissing it initially. So generally that's how I operate. It's not for everyone, but that's kind of where it's the mindset we take as our team to kind of drive the brand forward.
Yeah, that's great. I think about, I think 10, 15 years ago, we had appointment viewing, right? So you're sitting at home with your family, and you've got to turn it on at 8 o'clock because that's when it comes on. So I think your job is so much more challenged to find these consumers, keep them there, keep them engaged, and keep them coming back is probably the most critical piece, is the retention.
I might challenge that and say that I think appointment viewing is important for social conversation, but a lot of times what we see with some of our shows that maybe release episodically, they hit their finale, we'll see more viewership in the past 60 days than we did in the first 30. So in some ways, maybe the conversation doesn't hit a precipice at start, but it certainly kind of maybe has a simmer across over time. We've had shows that pop randomly that have been canceled that are on our service. We've had shows like that from maybe 2 or 3 years past that a TikTok went up and someone shared it and then it pops within our service. So I think the streaming nature of these services now, and the fact that they're always on, sometimes allows for consumers to have the opportunity to watch it all the time. But I think that go back to the top of what we were talking about before, which is like, again, when you have this monumental choice kind of dynamic within our space where you double the amount of product over 10 years, you're going to have paralysis from consumers about, and we've all experienced it, like how many people have in their notes app, like here's the 25 shows I want to watch over the next year. I mean, I have one with my wife that's longer than that, and it's because it's hard to kind of decide with that amount of choice, and then when it comes down to it, it's like, hey, my friend wants to watch this weekend, you want to do it? So it still goes back to the biggest marketing channel of all, which is like, recommendation from a friend. So yeah.
That's awesome. You've got a challenging job, so thank you very much for sharing with all of us. I'll open it up to the audience if there are any questions.
So you talked a lot about how TV viewing habits have changed, which obviously they have. They've changed very quickly. Historically, there are a lot of very specific dates in TV on which things occurred. How have you adjusted the decision making and shifted towards more, agile decision making with the sudden almost removal of these expected dates that things are occurring? Such as, like you just said, where someone might be viewing the show in the last 60 days and then all of a sudden gets a huge surge rather than in the first 2 or 3 episodes.
We kind of have a saying internally. It's largely in some of the performance and media teams, but you want to focus on the greatest, not the latest. And it simply means that we know, like based off of maybe because we've launched so many shows in the last 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, we kind of know based off of the trend trajectory of a show, where it's going to end up. And so, if you're a brand marketer and you're looking at, okay, how do I sell the service broadly? Whether a show is in its first month or its 25th month, if it's still bringing in subscribers, it's still bringing in eyeballs, I'm going to focus on that. And because it's going to still deliver. I mean, how many of us have watched a show that debuted, 2 years ago and finally got to it and enjoyed it and binged it over the weekend or whatever, maybe that whole day. But it's kind of, you have to kind of look at the internal signals and focus more on what's delivering as a product versus, what is coming out next week.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you.